Erdogan Marisol. Hello. Okay. Hello. Wonderful. Okay. I think we are whole. We are complete. So warm welcome once again to everybody. It's the afternoon of the second day of a very exciting International Investment Forum. I know some of us are tired, but this is a topic that's obviously near and dear to everybody's heart here. My name is Lucas Casey. I'm the new business manager, so the transactions manager for the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector investment arm of the World Bank Group. I'm responsible for our loans and equity investments in the manufacturing, agribusiness, and services sectors, which includes pharmaceuticals, covering the Middle East, Central Asia, Turkey, Pakistan, Afghanistan regions. But I'm here not to push my own agenda. I'm here to really have an open discussion about the prospects of the pharmaceutical industry in Uzbekistan. As I started, I sort of got ready for this event. I just looked at some of the statistics, and they're really quite astonishing. If you look at the population of Uzbekistan, 35 million. It's a sizable. It's Central Asia's largest single market. The growth in 2021, I think it's still estimated, but in the range of 6%. You've got a pharmaceutical market of about $1.7 billion in Uzbekistan. And you look at some other statistics, like the government health spending has increased by about 60% in the last 3 years to roughly 700 million. And they're expected to constitute about 5% of GDP by 2025. So we're, in simple terms, we're seeing a big uptick in the business, and yet there's a very high level of imports right now in the pharmaceutical business. It's roughly 85% is imported, of which 94% are generics. The retail pharmaceutical business is really in a nascent stage. In Uzbekistan, it's very fragmented. Most of the medicines are administered in hospitals and through other healthcare agencies. There's very limited local production, as you can imagine, given those import numbers. So really, there's a lot of opportunity in Uzbekistan. And again, the first statistic, you've got a large population that obviously, for whom healthcare is a top priority for the government and really as for society as a whole. So with that, I've got a wonderful panel of speakers today. I will introduce them briefly. We've got my first, to my left, Mr. Amarilo Inoyatov. He's the first Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Health in the Republic of Uzbekistan. We've got Mr. Sardor Kariev. He's the Director of the Agency of Development of the Pharmaceutical Industry under the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Ms. Muhabbat Askarova, the chairwoman of the Association of Representative Offices of Foreign Pharmaceutical Companies here in the Republic of Uzbekistan. Ms. Filiz Erdogan Mariseoğlu. She is the Chief Executive Officer and shareholder of the Kanimed Salik Çözümleri, which is a chain of medical diagnostic centers here in Uzbekistan. To her left is Ms. Lakshmi Prashana. She's the Regulatory Affairs Director of the Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India, PharmExil. And finally, Mr. Ayhan Öztürk. He's the Regional Vice President for Turkey, West Asia, and the Levant for Medtronic, currently one of the first medical device giants willing to get into the Uzbek market. So a wonderful group today. So we're going to run this session where I'll be asking some questions to each of our panelists. We'll get a flavor of sort of their perspectives in different areas of the industry, and we'll hopefully have time for some questions and answers and to make this a bit dynamic. I know on an afternoon of the second day of the conference, some of us want to sort of get up and be active, so we'll try to make this as interactive as possible, but first and foremost, giving the floor to our panelists. So I'll start out with Amarilo, Mr. Inoyatov. And I'm wondering if you can share with us about some insights about the public healthcare system now and how you see it will be in 2 years, the size of government investment in public healthcare, and your perspective on the growth of private healthcare in Uzbekistan.
Добрый день, дорогие гости, дорогие.
Good afternoon, dear guests, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart you for your presence, for your participation, that you have shared, dedicated your time today. Uzbekistan, for all countries of the world, is an open state. So I would like to tell you once again, welcome, dear guests. Dear participants of today's panel, from the side of our president, various areas and sectors of economy have been opened for foreign investors, not only in the context of the Central Asia, but in the global context. Now we are witnessing development of different areas of economy of our country, healthcare, education, commercial ties. This is a fourth renaissance or fifth renaissance that has been initiated by our country's president. So now we are at the stage of historic transformations and reforms. Yesterday, 1 week ago, on the 18th of March, our president, for the first time, has met with representatives of the medical sector of our country, with representatives of different medical companies, and he said that we have to develop a strategy along 8 directions in order to alleviate the health condition of the country's population. And from the state budget, more than 2.3 trillion Uzbek sum has been allocated for this purpose. Also, within the healthcare system, we have to transform the system of education of medical staff. We are cooperating in this field with foreign partners, with international organizations. We are developing the medical education system in our country. It also includes educating younger generation in foreign languages in order to get prepared for future challenges and future objectives. This is a plan structured for the period of 8 years by our distinguished, esteemed president. In short, all these reforms that are going on in our country's healthcare system, the priority task is to attract foreign investors. I would like to present this information for potential investors. If you look at these slides, you will see the population, general information about the population of our country. The total number is over 35 million of people, and their age structure is as follows. Almost 60% is represented by young people. At the age ranging from 35 to 69 people, years of age, 35 to 69. During pandemic crisis, all countries of the world have suffered from it, including Uzbekistan. So rapidly, in the March of 2020, a set of measures has been developed and endorsed by our president in order to counter the negative consequences of COVID pandemic. A lot of COVID treatment hospitals has been built with a total number of 35,000 beds. So from the side of the government, significant resources have been allocated for treatment of COVID and prevention of COVID spread. With regards to COVID statistics, the incidence of COVID makes 237,000 people. Out of them, 235,000 people have recovered. It means 99%. And the number of people who died from it is 2.3 thousand. So all the measures that we have implemented during that period, the 100% coverage of immunization is our goal. At the moment, we have reached the benchmark of 92% of vaccination of Uzbek population. So in Tashkent region, the highest number of the people infected with coronavirus. In other regions, we do not experience an outburst of COVID. So all these COVID treating hospitals have been are in conservation state at the moment because there is no need in their deployment. In our country, in the medical sphere, there are more than 4,000 institutions, specialized medical treatment centers, 20. Please show the next slide. And what I have said previously, this slide is providing a more detailed information about the projects that we propose for consideration by potential experts. For example, creation of cancer treatment centers, up-to-date, modern, equipped with modern equipment center in order to cover the demand in treatment of cancer-related diseases and cancer among the population. We also have to use this center for early detection of oncological disease, to use it for as an advanced diagnostics center. Also, we have to develop such branches inside our medical science as radiology. And also we have to create a modern center for cardiovascular diseases treatment. Because in our country, the incidence of cardiovascular diseases makes 2,265 people per every 1,000 persons of population. We have to develop surgery like transplantation of vitally important human body organs. We have to equip our clinics with most advanced state-of-the-art equipment. Then our third task is creation of the Center of Neurology for treatment of strokes and after-stroke rehabilitation. Our country, in certain regions of our country, is building such centers already. So Our next direction of development of our efforts is improvement of the perinatal assistance to newly born infants in order to reduce the mortality among infants. These medical services have to be developed and improved and brought to a new level. For example, in 2016, there was 16 pro mille per 1,000, 16 infant deaths per 1,000 births, live births. In 2021, it has decreased this indicator to 8.3 pro mille. Therefore, we need to attract attention of our esteemed investors to these areas that they can invest in the development of such specialized medical centers. Our 5th direction is creation of the most advanced center of endocrinology in order to treat the endocrinological diseases, and first of all those which are related to thyroid dysfunction. Our 6th direction is creation of the specialized center of nephrology and transplantology. The number of patients suffering from kidney diseases is more than 22,000 in our country, and over 3,500 people out of them need a transplantation or hemodialysis assistance. We have to raise to the level of Russia, Korea, and some other foreign countries which have advanced nephrology and transplantology centers. The kidney transplantation only in 2 centers is being such services are being provided only in 2 centers in our country, regional centers. For the first time in our country, in the level of in district of Denau in districts of Denau in Surkhandarya and in Beruni district of Karakalpak Republic in Uzbekistan, the kidney transplants have been done. Also, we have to think about advancement of our techniques on transplanting hearts. According to the decree of our president, the development of this area of medicine is envisaged. So we have to work jointly with different entrepreneurs and businessmen in these vitally important areas. The next one, the 7th direction of our efforts, is improvement of the blood transfusion service in the Republic of Uzbekistan. And in 2021, more than 113 tons of blood were produced for blood transfusion. Out of 113 tons of blood, R mass or plasma mass makes 55 tons, and R mass of blood is 58 tons. So it covers only 30% of our demand. We have to import the remaining portion from abroad. Therefore, we would like to invite investors to this vitally important area of medical assistance in order to transform our blood transfusing clinics. Also, I would like to mention about other important direction of our activities is creation of the central laboratory of molecular and genetic testing, and to open its regional branches in all provinces of the Republic of Uzbekistan. These molecular genetic laboratories will allow us to detect at early stages spinal and muscular atrophy and other orphan diseases. I would like to say openly to invite all entrepreneurs interested in development of medical sector of our country that the country has allocated 16 trillion Uzbek sum out of the state budget. In 2021, the amount allocated from the state budget was already 24 trillion Uzbek sum. And for this year, additional 2.3 trillion sum has been allocated over the previous year amount out of the budget. So I would like to repeat the words of our esteemed president that we have to look after the interests of the foreign investors, and we have created all the favorable conditions for their activities in our country. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambrilo. It's fascinating to hear all of the important initiatives of the government in the areas, obviously, of COVID treatment, cancer, oncology, thyroid, nephrology, transplantology, blood supply. These are all very important aspects, and you can see the need. I'd like to pivot now to Mr. Sardor Kariev, the Director on Agency of Development of the Pharmaceutical Industry under the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Sardor, we have 3 questions for you. And you're welcome to stay, or if you would like to stand, however, whatever. If you could answer us how the Uzbekistan pharmaceutical market looks today, what are the plans for the development of the sector, and why would one choose Uzbekistan as an investor destination? And I would like to ask Sardor and all panelists, I'm aware of time, and we've got to actually release this hall in an hour, so if we could keep the presentations to 5-7 minutes max. That way we leave also some time for questions answered. Sardor, over to you.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants of this panel meeting and this forum, and I would like to wish everyone fruitful negotiations and discussions.
Taking this opportunity, I would like to shortly give some introduction about the achievements in the pharmaceutical sector of Uzbekistan for the recent years. Where are we now, and what are the plans for the future investment in this sector? As it was mentioned by Ms. Shadivich, the system of healthcare is being transformed with the microphone. Yeah, thank you. And as you have noticed, each field of the healthcare system is being considered as a separate priority, and the separate budget is being allocated for development of the field. And it's the pharmaceutical sector is fulfilling this budget too, because and supports the other relevant fields, because it cannot those fields cannot be developed themselves, and the government pays a lot of attention to development of this pharmaceutical industry, and the free economical zones for the pharmaceutical productions were established, and the company is implementing their projects in those zones getting the preferences, tax preferences for attracting the investments in this sector. Moreover, Uzbekistan is giving a lot of attention to the modern, advanced capacity building. Together with the British partners, we're establishing new pharmaceutical university for these purposes, and currently we have another high institutions for training high qualified specialists for developing this sector. As talking about statistics currently, as it was mentioned by our moderator, the pharmaceutical market of Uzbekistan includes more than 1.5 billion US dollars with the 15% annual growth, and the market of Central Asia has high dynamic capacity of more than more than 6 billion US dollars. And for the recent years, we have implemented more than 144 investment projects. 30 of those projects were implemented in the free economical zones, and those investments allowed us to increase industry more than 2 times. And currently, we are putting the ambitious plans, and recently our President has signed the decree for development of the pharmaceutical industry, the plan of actions for the 5 years for localization of more than 80% of the consumed pharmaceutical products, and we're planning to achieve 60% of production. And currently we're exporting more than $100 billion. We are planning to achieve more than $350 million. And for these plans we have relevant adequate infrastructure, capacity of healthcare, local investors, and we see many investors, foreign investors, willing to localize their products. We have some interest from the European countries. We have already started implementation of the joint projects with for production of different generic products with the European investors, and still we have more capacity for implementing. For example, the blood processing in Uzbekistan is not well developed, and the last recent presidential decree for development of the pharmaceutical production includes the elimination of the monopoly for blood processing, and the involvement of the private sector into this sector. And we have potential of more than 500,000 of consumers and clients, and for the blood sourcing, blood donors for blood processing, and we have a huge potential, huge capacity for investors. And beside this, we have opportunity for developing the oncogematological directions. We are building the new oncological centers for oncological disease, for screening, for the general screening of the whole population, plant screening. And the capacity of those clinics and hospitals will be increasing, and the companies with the focus on the oncological disease will have definitely will have a high potential. And if we look at the world trend, we are now have a trend towards the biological products, and according to the recent presidential decree, a lot of attention is being given to that sector too, and we have good potential for these in oncological sector. We have the oncological therapy, and the demand for this therapy is being increased from year to year, and we need to highlight that the vascular diseases are also being increased, and the number of patients is being increased, and Uzbekistan is producing the generic products for this vascular disease treatment. But we need a more modern approach and advanced drugs. And we have more than 200 local producers, and still the need for the subsidizing products is still high, and it's also a high potential for production of the substance in Uzbekistan. That's a general overview, and I'll be glad to answer. Thank you very much, Sartor. It was
The need to attract maybe within the economic zones. There's a lot of growth that you gave us some good statistics in the manufacturing space. Heard you on the need for investment in technology too, and with the incidences of sickness going up, it's even more acute. I'd like to turn now to Muhabbat Askarova. Muhabbat is the chairwoman of the Association of Representative Offices of Foreign Pharmaceutical Companies and Manufacturers here in the Republic of Uzbekistan, was a doctor before, and later owner of a pharmaceutical distribution company. Muhabbat, how is the pharmaceutical market in Uzbekistan changing? How do you see the pandemic? Has the pandemic changed the pharmaceutical market? Has it affected it? What lessons have we learned? Are there international players in the market, and which segments of the Uzbek pharma industry would you think is going to be attractive for international companies?
Спасибо большое. Добрый день, уважаемые
Uzbekistan. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
представители иностранных фармкомпаний.
On behalf of the Association of the Foreign Pharmaceutical Companies of Uzbekistan, for me it's a great honor to participate in this panel discussion. I would like to thank the organizers of present forum, International Investment Forum, and in particular I would like to thank the participants of this panel session for demonstrating your interest into the development of pharmaceutical industry of Uzbekistan. We have listened to the speeches of the director of the Pharmaceutical Development Agency of Uzbekistan and to the speech of the Deputy Minister of Health of Uzbekistan. I would like to give you brief analytical figures about pharmaceutical market of Uzbekistan. Let's look at this presentation. As it has been said before by previous speakers, the pharmaceutical market of Uzbekistan is dynamically developing. It's one of the best performing markets of the Central Asia and among other CIS countries. At this slide, you can see analytical data of the growth of the market starting from 2018 until 2021. Its performance won the blue column is official data of the WHO of drug audit program, and in red column we are showing the data collected by reports of the retail market. For the last year, our performance indicators were 1.7 million USD, according to drug audit report 1.5 million. In 2021, the pharmaceutical market of Uzbekistan has demonstrated a growth by 80% almost, compared to 2019, almost by 30%. It has increased, and we this year are expecting to reach a figure of 2 billion. USD. This is a slide of a packed medicines dynamics in comparison of previous year with 2017. The pandemic pandemic crisis, has been countered by various measures developed by the public healthcare sector of our country. You see, in comparison to 2018, 2019, has demonstrated a steady growth because we were using a packed anti-COVID medicines based on the number of decrees of the Cabinet of Ministers. We have built up our consumption and procurement. Why there was such a drastic change? Because there were changes in the protocol of medical treatment of COVID and COVID-related diseases. So there was a growth by 30%. And then in 2021, there was a drop by 5%. Why? Because there was an oversaturation with medicines in Uzbek market in 2020 during the outburst of pandemic. This slide shows us pharmaceutical market overview. We have divided our import flows to procurement and imports into three categories. Gray one is local production of medicines produced by local manufacturers. Second one, orange, the produce procured from foreign manufacturers, and the blue one from CIS manufacturers. CIS means Russia, Belarus, other post-Soviet countries. We have a lot of manufacturers that are manufacturing antigens starting from 2018. We see a steady growth of both local production and import from CIS countries. That has led to a number of 1,700,000,000 of turnover at the retail market. What has happened during pandemic period in Uzbekistan? Of course, it has adjusted our structures, our lifestyles, and globally it has affected negatively the lives of people. And also it had its impact on the pharmaceutical market. What main lessons that we have learned from pandemic? First of all, we have changed our attitude towards life. Secondly, we have changed the concept of consumption of pharmaceuticals. It has demonstrated this crisis that Homo sapiens is a very flexible creature. It is able to adapt to different conditions and to employ new methods. As a representative of private business, I am praising the government's efforts that has united efforts of public sector and private sectors, and has united the efforts of all the divisions of the medical care system of our country. It has united the business circles, manufacturers, distributing companies, and also retail entities like pharmacies, drugstores. So all of our activities were focused on one objective: how to help the end user and consumer We had sleepless nights during that period in the Ministry of Health, in the Agency on Pharmaceutical Industry Development, in distribution companies. We were working 24 hours. We had emergency medicines kits everywhere in the pharmacies. We were constantly replenishing our stock list of this, the most critically important medicines like Clexan, Frasafarin, etc. And during pandemic, a part of our unification, we have demonstrated a kindness to each other. Maybe it may seem a little bit sentimental. However, I would like to highlight this, that we were trying to help each other. Yesterday there was a meeting on where Mr. Sadek Safayev has participated and Mrs. Galina Saidova, and they have mentioned about what are the requirements of market now. And we have outlined one thing, it's logistics. Creation of big logistics hubs. Mrs. Saidova has said that at present the government is working out new land routes, new railroads, and creating big transportation logistics hubs. Even big pharma companies are now thinking about creating big warehouses of their medicines, of their pharmaceuticals. Despite of the fact that Uzbekistan is a landlocked country, since ancient times we were located along the Great Silk Road, and nowadays our government is trying to revive it at the territory of Uzbekistan. So I would like that our advantages in our preparedness and readiness for cooperation with all the foreign manufacturers during the current year of 2022, we had received business missions from Latvia, from Ukraine, from Russian Federation, from France, from Japan. Japan is very much interested in developing cooperation with us. We have arranged a series of webinars with pharmaceutical plants of Japan, and they have expressed their interest in entering Uzbek market. I would like to praise the efforts of our agency on pharmaceutical industry development. They're doing a lot to promote Uzbek pharmaceutical market. I would like to speak a little bit about retail sector, about the pharmacies. What changes have been made to pharmacist network? Due to pandemic period high demand in certain medicines, the pharmacists are conducting more careful analysis of their stock of the medicines that are in high demand, and they are now forming a 2-week stock, not a longer period stock. That's why they're reacting more rapidly to demand. That means that we are developing our analytical skills. Yesterday, at the governmental level, we have listened to their information about new logistics routes, new transportation connectivity from which our pharmaceutical industry will benefit as well.
We don't think of the pandemic as necessarily in a positive light, but you really noted how it served as a sort of a uniter in a very difficult time, and we learned in Uzbekistan to work together to deal with a major sort of countrywide issue. So very inspiring and very interesting on the point about analysis. I'd like to now hand over to Feliz Erdoğan Marasioğlu. Merhaba. Merhabalar. Hoş geldiniz. She's the Chief Executive Officer and shareholder of Kanimed Sağlık Çözümleri, which is a chain of medical diagnostic centers here in Uzbekistan. Filiz Hanım, how is the situation with the supply of professional healthcare professionals now in Uzbekistan? What are the prospects you see for the development of clinical trials in Uzbekistan? And can you share with us the Turkey experience in the development of clinical trials in Uzbekistan?
First of all, I would like to say hello for all participants and the audiences. I'm going to speak as a real foreigner investment in healthcare investment in Uzbekistan. So I would like to share my practical experience. So first of all, actually we are Turkish, so Uzbekistan is not like the other country for us. Surprisingly, me and all my colleagues feels that at home. So maybe I cannot be so fair about this. We don't feel that we are foreigners in here. We feel at home. Firstly, in 2018, we came together with our president. At that time, let me express what I feel when I first hear Mr. Şevket Mirziyoyev president. I saw the anxieties, I saw the perfectionists. At that moment, we decided to invest Uzbekistan after listening to Mr. President. It was the point that we decided. Then we came to here. What I can say easily, it is my age will be clear, but I have to tell this. I saw this movie in Turkey. So, too many challenges, too many things to do. We have to do more, too much money required. But if Turkey did this, I'm 100% sure that Uzbekistan will gonna make this. By the way, before I forget, personally I would like to thank Mr. Iniatov, his support. Please be sure about that. If you invest in here, you are going to feel the support of Mr. Iniatov particularly. I cannot say whole Minister of Health, but Mr. Iniatov is the one. Not because of he is here, this is the reality. Always we feel his support and the encouraging and the, how can I say, the supporting us, even sometimes we fail like this. First we go to the Afghan border, Surhani Darya. It was scary at first time, but it was really great adventure for us. We just form a central laboratory in Termis, and with the PPP agreement, it was the first PPP laboratory agreement with Ministry of Health, and then we put blood collection points every part of the state. At first stage it was like dreaming. Even I myself didn't believe that we can do, but it happens. Secondly, we understand that we did the right thing when we are coming here. In Turkish there is one idiom, maybe my Uzbek friends understand me. Karavan yolda düzüledi. Our story is like this. We started, we did something and we achieved. By the way, first of all, at every time we support the governmental organization, starting from the embassy of Uzbekistan in Ankara till the Hakimiyet of Surhani Darya or Hakimiyet of Tashkent, always we have supported. Always the government officers are sincere and eager to do everything that they can. Secondly, after the Surhandarya experience and the adventure is the right word, and it was very nice adventure for us. Still our chain of laboratories keep growing in Surhandarya. Also, we have decided to invest more. Also, we would like to jump to Kashkadarya, then after that go to Karakal, Pakistan as a laboratory operator. Then we came to Tashkent. It is the bigger market, and in that here we have some competitors. I wish to have more, by the way. And we did something good, what I believe, in the Children Medical Center. We have started to operate the laboratory of NCMC. Proudly say that it was the first working molecular biology and genetic laboratory. We did a diagnosis for 75 SMA children by the golden standard method with the MLPA. Secondly, we have started to whole exome screening tests. Third, we have started to work with the newborn rare diseases. Plus, we have started to genetic investigation of unborn babies. Proudly say that wherever available in the world as a laboratory test, at the moment in Uzbekistan, together with my Uzbek colleagues, we are performing here. And the laboratory, our laboratory is also CAP, College of American Pathologists certified and accredited, which is the first time in Middle Asia CAP certification. And we would like to do more. By the way, I would like to point out that first, as an investor, again, I have to tell that for investing construction, investing fancy instruments like this, I'm done with this. We keep investing human resources from now on. We will gonna invest for education, training. Sorry for pharmaceutical colleagues, but we are going to start a new training program, right diagnose, less pharmaceutical. We have just, I'm sorry, Serdar Bey, but this is, I'm so sorry. It's conflict of interest, but it is required for Uzbekistan what I need. So we keep going. It was not easy way, but still we are happy. So what I have some suggestions for the investors. First of all, don't be scared. This is one of the most lovely country in the world that you can be here. You don't have any security issues, I assure you. Even Afghan border, at 3 o'clock, I was just walking around. Secondly, for the financial transactions, even one day, we didn't have any problem. Third, we have to train our team ourselves. So we have to be courage, and we have to give value and take care of the young, ambitious, hardworking Uzbek balalar. So instead of very, very old professors, I advise to focus on the very young, ambitious, eager to learn doctors or the healthcare professionals. On the other hand, I'm sorry, Serdar Bey, but the hardest thing is in the Uzbekistan because of the registration, import of the latest technology. I hope Mr. Kariyev will gonna help us to be more fast. Because we would like to work with the latest technology. This is not the country that you can bring second-hand devices and try to sell double prices. So I am the one who wants to bring the latest technology, so let me do this. I'm sorry, but it is exactly the right place to talk. And on the other hand, in Uzbekistan, the people know better than you guess everything. They are before coming, they are searching, they are coming, and they are directing. Also, we are in the diagnosis sector, And we have just met brilliant doctors chasing every patients one by one, especially now we are in the children's hospital. So personally, I saw that these doctors are just giving everything to make life the newborn babies or the kids. So proudly say that also we are just following every children one by one. So last thing, so sorry to keep too much. If you want to invest in healthcare, I think Uzbekistan is the best destination. Just don't be afraid. Come here, you will be supported and you will feel safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Feliz. Before we move,
Спасибо большое.
Mr. Inoyatov would like to say a few short words.
Çok teşekkür ederiz. Filiz Hanım, marhaba, hoş geldiniz. Ben aytmoqchiman, mana bular 2 yildirki bugun
That I would like to say that after opening the number of laboratories, especially in Surkhandarya region, they have achieved the number of results, and as a outcome, they are producing more than 300 items of different medicine products. And before it was imported to the south border of Uzbekistan to Surkhandarya, overcoming the 1,000 kilometers of road, and now they are producing it currently, and under the leadership of our previous speaker, I would like to say that a lot of work have been done, and we have a saying that one person can do one thing, and together we can do a lot of things. We can achieve we can construct a bridge. So we are now constructing the bridge between Uzbekistan and Turkey. Thank you very much.
And now we'll move to Lakshmi Prasanna. I think it's a nice pivot from a successful foreign investor case to Lakshmi, who's the Regulatory Affairs Director of the Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council for Pharmexil from India. She's promoting Indian pharmaceuticals in many countries, and she's able to compare the countries. So she's got a very worldwide sort of perspective to share. So Lakshmi, would you share with us the experience of India in the pharmaceutical, the evolution of the pharmaceutical industry, the Indian experience of API localization, the experience in boosting the number of FDA accredited pharmaceutical companies, and the Indian experience in developing professionals, the people development for the pharmaceutical industry?
First of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and it's really a great honor for me to be present here among the esteemed panelists, and a great honor for Pharmexil Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India, working under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, to put forward the experience of Indian pharmaceutical industry on this august gathering. We could personally foresee Uzbekistan in the position of India way back when we were in the years of 1950 and 1960, where we were largely depending on the pharmaceutical needs of the countries from the Western world especially, and the most of the MNCs used to export the medicines from the Western world to India, and a lot of the medical needs are being under import conditions. Then the policy makers have realized how important it is to develop the domestic industry for the basic pharmaceutical needs, which certainly affecting the entire economic situation of the country. And they have taken the measures which has made the position of India from an import dependent country to the export dominant in generics to the global world. Now India is a leading generic exporters in the world, exporting almost $25 billion worth of pharmaceuticals to more than 200 countries. You name whether the cardiovasculars or anti-cancer drugs or any other medicines, the Indian companies are in a position to supply those medical needs to the world. Just to give an instance, USA is the leading supplier of the Indian generics, and almost 33% of our exports are going to the United States, followed by 18% to European Union and 15% to Africa. And in fact, Indian industries have emerged as the global leaders, and about 8 Indian companies are featuring across the top 20 global generics. Just to name a few, Dr. Reddy's, which is one of the member of the Association of Representative for Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan, is one of the leading Indian generic exporters, featuring in the top 20 global generics, besides Sun Pharmaceuticals and Aurobindo and many other companies. What made the companies of India on a global platform is really the policy changes that the government has adopted in terms of boosting the domestic industry. So they have realized it's just not the formulations which needs to be strengthened, but the basic raw materials and the APIs are the first priority that the industry needs to build upon before stepping into the generic space. So the government has instituted national institutions for the development of technologies for these APIs, and they have instituted the public sector undertaking units, which has really laid down the foundation steps for the pharmaceutical industry in the country. And thereupon, of course, government has also identified other priority sectors for this pharmaceutical industry, that is the human resources is another sector where the government needs to focus. So adding on to these policy measures, the entrepreneurial skills of the industry and the research and development technologies of the human personals have really fueled the growth of the Indian pharmaceutical journey in the past 4-5 decades, and now we are in the leading position of the generics. And just to share with the August gathering, India is also now has become the leading biosimilar market with the merging of Biocon, India-based company, acquiring the biosimilar industry of biosimilar market of Viatris, that is Mylan company. So now Indian company has emerged as the global leader of the biosimilar industry, which is the emerging industry in the global market. So these are all the factors which has really helped the Indian industry to project in the global market, and now the industry is focusing their approach more towards the biotech space and the personalized and precision medicines. And besides that, the vaccine space, of course, the industry has really worked really hard in the vaccine space, and India has emerged as a leading supplier of the vaccines to the World Health Organization. And you name any of the international procured agency vaccines, India is the supplier of those vaccines. And however, over the period of this journey, the industry's focus has slightly migrated towards the highly profitable generics apart from the APIs, and slowly left the capacities of majorly antibiotic technologies to other countries, and we are largely relying now on the other countries for the APIs and the basic chemicals. So, but the COVID pandemic has opened the eyes, not just the India, but across the world, and it has shown how important the supply chain resilience to the national needs of any country, and it has given a big lesson, and even the government of India has realized that, and now they are again coming up with another policy to bring back the domestic capacities in the API space, and they have proposed a policy measures and announced around $3 million of worth of funds for again developing the API, basic API needs, especially in the antibiotic space. So the government is working in towards the direction, and on top of that, in terms of a regulatory developments, which one of the point that I was asked to talk about. In fact, another major hedge where the Indian industry has really leveraged the global marketplace is because of this Hatch-Waxman's Act of US FDA, which encourages the entry of the generic market, and that has really given a push to the Indian industry. And on the other side, from the government of India's side, we have instituted some of the incentives for encouraging the companies to get their registrations in the abroad. I believe that the Uzbekistan has also adopted similar kind of a modality now, and they are encouraging to incentivize the registration fees that the indigenous companies are going to pay in the abroad market. So this particular mechanism was being adopted by the government of India way back 15 years ago, and which has really pushed the Indian companies to gain their market access, especially in the regulated markets like US and Europe, in terms of encouraging and in terms of incentivizing the kind of the registration fees that the companies are paying in international market. And going forward, of course, the government of India and the pharmaceutical industry of India is working very closely with Uzbekistan, and as a Pharmexcel, we had an MOU with those farm agencies, and we are working very closely from the past few years since the time the government of Uzbekistan has taken a decision to develop the industry. So India and Pharmexcel is at the forefront in supporting and development of the industry, and we have signed an MOU and working very closely, and we have done a series of webinars in terms of development of industry in various aspects. And even for this event, we have led a trade delegation of 28 companies from India for this event, and the last 2 days we had extensive discussions with the agency and the regulatory officials and the local industry, and we are working together, and we are looking forward to have a deeper engagements, and on both at the government side and the private side. We are looking forward to extend our best greetings and support to the government of Uzbekistan for the engagement of the bilateral development of pharmaceutical industry, not just only the industry, but also in terms of the education of the healthcare professionals and other related services, which are very much useful for the development of the industry in this country. Thank you so much for having me and for patiently listening to my words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi. Fascinating. Please, indeed, Lakshmi reminds us all of the importance of the role the government is going to play in the development of any country's pharmaceutical industry at any level. I mean, a lot of us sort of equate India with just being this very large producer. But it doesn't just happen granularly. It takes cooperation and support from the government, is what I was hearing you say. Wonderful. Well, look, we've got one more speaker, Mr. Ayjan Öztürk. Welcome, Ayjan. Ayjan is the Regional Vice President for Turkey, West Asia, and the Levant for Medtronic, one of the first medical device giants who's actually in the Uzbek market. So welcome, Ayjan.
Thank you.
And Ayjan, what do you see are the opportunities for international players, international manufacturers in Uzbekistan, and how do you fulfill the gap in the healthcare delivery system in Uzbekistan, or how do you fulfill gaps? How does your company sort of serve those gaps?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to start by recognizing the great efforts done by the Uzbekistan government in advancing the country in such a short period of time. I was here in 2017, early 17, and the country I've seen today versus the country I saw 5-6 years ago has almost no resemblance. It's truly an amazing transformation. So a great recognition to the leadership of this country. Now, I'm the regional vice president for Medtronic, and for those who don't know Medtronic, Medtronic is the world's leading medtech company. We spend $3 billion almost every year on R&D, and our portfolio is the widest, the largest portfolio of any single medtech company out there. When I look at Uzbekistan, and I have been fortunate to let's say, oversee and manage other countries, I see a country at the cusp of great transformation. Really, it's sitting at the crossroads. On one side, you have a very visionary leadership who wants to open the country, integrate the country with the rest of the world. But can this be done without really a strong healthcare ecosystem? I think we all know the answer. It's not possible. So today, Uzbekistan, with a 35 million population, is leaking its patients outside the country. 35 million people living in this country, and there's a significant outflow of patients to other countries. And the Honorable Minister said that there are countries where patients go for treatment. How do we create more access in this country? How do we improve the outcomes in this country? That's what I'm interested in. And this cannot be done without the strong leadership of the Minister of Health, the strong partnership with companies who are really able to do this. The gap in skills today is probably one of the biggest bottlenecks in the country. You have medical faculties who graduate thousands of new doctors every year. You have doctors, physicians who are in private and public hospitals, but are they really equipped with the latest skills which will make them really experienced enough to treat patients in this country with good outcomes? How do we ensure that the Uzbek physicians, nurses, technicians in this country get the best training so they can actually not only treat the Uzbek population, but one day hopefully can become a healthcare tourism hub for the region? Now that's the exciting part of Uzbekistan. It has a sizable population which can actually help the country invest in this. And in my opinion, if you leave this to the quote-unquote mercy of the private industry, this might take more than a decade, if maybe more, and there is no guaranteed outcome. The training gap needs to be addressed. If the country can train its own physicians. I know there are a lot of efforts where Uzbek physicians are being trained. I know in Turkey, Medtronic plays a strong part in this. There are agreements with other governments where Uzbek physicians go and get trained on, but that's only scratching the surface. You need to establish a strong academic training practice in the country where you can create this sustainable ecosystem which feeds itself, and then you have enough masters of training physicians who can then train the younger generation, right? And then you go on and you go on all the way to the most sophisticated treatments. The other thing is, today in the Uzbekistan public healthcare system at least, I see a very fragmented purchasing practice where hospitals are trying to procure their own medical devices without much of a concern to quality, without standardization on quality, and without, I must say, the best value for the buck. So you have different purchasing practices. A country like Uzbekistan, with precious resources, and no country has unlimited resources, everybody's resources is limited, right? Needs to make sure that the government caters for the bigger population with the most smartest purchasing practices. Countries like Turkey, where the healthcare system is quite advanced, move to a central purchasing practice to make sure it creates the synergies of procurement, it leverages the buying power of a big buyer versus small fragmented purchasing, it brings the standards and makes sure that the industry is always competitive and attracts enough competitive practices into the market. Now, I don't see why Uzbekistan should not follow that model, where the procurement of this large, vast public procurement system is unified and brought to under a more disciplined procurement practice. Now, these are the things that will give the country enough power to kickstart a sustainable medical device industry. One thing I have to stress, which is important, when I look at Uzbekistan, I see a lot of similarities to other countries, but most notably, Turkey has gone through this experience. If Turkey today is the center for many therapies for healthcare tourism and has a very strong practice, is due to the fact that it has a very strong medtech industry as the, I would say, the hidden champion. It's the secret sauce in this formula. Without a strong medtech industry, you cannot drive a strong transformation. So my humble advice is, and I look at Uzbekistan, is Uzbekistan needs to invest in a strong local training practice to make sure that this talented workforce of physicians are trained in the country. You can still train for more advanced therapies outside. You can bring proctors to the country. It's still all possible, but the core needs to be in the country. Second, the procurement practices needs to be centralized, in my opinion, to drive cohesion, consistency, bring standards to the procurement practices, and invest in the enabling technologies. without technology, you cannot really do much other than maybe doing some basic diagnostics. If that is done, I don't see why Uzbekistan should not be a star in the region with its own population, with its proximity to other countries, and I'm sure Uzbekistan will become a hub for healthcare tourism, which is exporting healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayjan. Fascinating, and I think you brought us back to basics when it comes to skills and how the importance of that in all healthcare industries, including pharmaceuticals, and training. And if you leave it to the next generation, then you're just delaying a problem that really needs to be addressed. And I think we can all share in that. And sometimes it's an overlooked area. Well, we've got a little bit more time. I'd just like to summarize and leave some time in case anybody has questions. I have some, but I would rather leave it to the...
Можно будет дополнение? Небольшое.
I would like to add a few words. I would like to reply to your question about the training of the medical staff. I would like to say a few words. It's a long history of academic training of physicians in Uzbekistan. We have, for example, an so-called Institute of Medical Staff Retraining, where every physician has to undergo a retraining course. It's like a medical school, in-service medical school for physicians. We had so-called clinical ordinance, then postgraduate studies, so-called Ministry of Healthcare every 5 years, sometimes once in 3 years, is carrying out the accreditation, professional accreditation of physicians. We cannot say that our staff is not adequately trained. We have to provide more laboratory trials. Ой, так невозможно, что-то, something is whistling. Please sort out this. Наушники снимите, пожалуйста.
Наушники надо одеть. Хорошо. Все, снять. Хорошо. Вот. И я хочу сказать, что
I would like to say that the government is doing a lot in this regard in improvement of training. The first deputy minister has said on the 18th of March that was the first time in history meeting of the head of the state with representatives of medical circles, with physicians. I would like to tell you that the medical centers in Uzbekistan were always a hub for entire Central Asian region. I'm a physician and I know it from my own practice that here always people from all over the Central Asia were trained. Mrs. Muhabat, I would like to remind you that we did not speak about the lack of training or something of that kind. And despite of the fact that our physicians have a very good academic background, also we are sending them abroad for internship, for upgrade of their skills. A new cluster, which is called Pharma Park, will also be involved in additional training of already working professionals, physicians, not only for students. Our genetic foundation is strong. Thank you for your input. Mr. Ayhan, I would like to clarify Mr. Ayhan's question. He said that the new generation of physicians has to get trained properly in modern technologies. Why? Because the robotics medicine is developing rapidly all over the world. That's why they're interested in opening a training school for the use of robotics here, in order to train our students using simulators, robots, automated equipment. This is very important for us. Of course, Mr. Ayhan, we would like to thank you for your initiatives, and we would like to support you.
I know the strong legacy of Uzbekistan physicians. Even in the Soviet times, it was a strong center for medicine and healthcare practices. But my point is, technology is advancing so fast, especially in medical devices and technology, that us as an industry, we play a very important role in keeping the physicians close to technology. It's not the medical faculty training we mean here. It's more about adoption of technology, using it in the best possible way, making sure that no complications arise from using it. And as the technology developer ourselves, we are a technology company, right? We're no different than Apple's of the communications world. We develop medical technology, they develop communications technology. So as the developer, we have the responsibility to train physicians on the latest technologies, how to use it in the best possible way, and the simulation part plays a very important role. The example is, you don't give a pilot the plane to fly 300 people as soon as they get their flying permits. They need to go through thousands of hours of extensive simulation flights before they can be given the responsibility of flying an airplane, large airplane. Similarly to this, I believe the country would benefit immensely by having a strong technology training center built on a strong academic training, as you said. And then the 35 million population in the country will give enough opportunities for physicians to do cases. And each case will hopefully give enough experience so that the outcomes, which is the most important thing, once you start spending more money on healthcare as the Uzbek government, very soon the bottleneck will be, do we get the highest return on the investment? And that's where outcomes come into play. Volume versus quality versus quantity, that is a very fine balance there you have. So if you train the right way, if you have the best technology, hopefully your outcomes should be also better. Less complications, less ICU time, less rehospitalization, less morbidity, etc., etc. So, but thank you for clarifying. That's what I meant.
Thank you. Thank you both. And we had one question. I think we have time for one question.
This is not a question, this is like a wish. 70 years our company is working on pharmaceutical market. There is a question about the branding, labeling of medical products. Не слышно. Ну,
Но при этом сделать там проще и лучше даже, допустим. Какие-то могут быть, я уверен, может быть, какая-то работа ведется, и здесь вы сейчас поделитесь, это как раз и вопросы, и пожелания, да? Сделать и электронную часть, допустим, то есть до определенных сумм, чтобы было прозрачно, и тут очень важно, что это вот как раз то, что господин Устур говорил, касательно того, что должна быть специализация, то есть должны быть специалисты, которые могут понимать разницу между различными изделиями лекарственными. Точно так же и должна быть система, которая прозрачна, этична, без коррупционного фактора, да, это все должно закупаться и так далее. То есть мы не говорим, что сейчас этого всего нет, но как бы это все можно совершенствовать, тем более, что на самом деле средства выделяемые увеличиваются. И еще один важный аспект, это аспект, наверное, фармакоэкономики, да, это Health Economy Assessment, да, то есть есть Technologies, то есть вот это все тоже можно внедрять, и я думаю, что это позволит как раз с увеличением бюджета поставить более такую работу, и это позволит многим международным компаниям, в том числе, еще раз таки, то есть, допустим, прийти на рынок, потому что для них иногда не смотрят, говорят, а как это все работает? И когда ты им рассказываешь, они недостаточно убеждены, что все достаточно прозрачно. Поэтому вот это большая работа, и я думаю, что в результате это не означает, что всегда будет закупаться дешевое лекарство, да, дешевый генерик. Где-то нужен дешевый генерик, а где-то за счет фармаэкономики можно прийти к выводу, что это инновационный препарат, который, да, дороже, но зато он сразу лечит, допустим, да, и так далее. То есть за вылеченный случай. Тогда. Такой вот вопрос пожелания. Спасибо большое.
Большое спасибо за ваш вопрос и пожелания. В принципе, как вы знаете, сейчас Министерство здравоохранения, новый министр, он первым делом, когда приступил к этой должности, вызвал меня и поставил задачу, чтобы то, что ваши пожелания были,
requested me to elaborate this the program with consideration of those aspects. Of course, I cannot say that we do not have any transparency and regarding the bidding and procurement. We have a procurement. It's a centralized with involvement of different lots where the investors can participate. We have a separate centralized procurement which is being conducted based on the TOR, specific TOR, and any local company can participate in this bidding. And I agree with you that we need to digitize it and to widely publish those announcements of calls for these tenders and for these biddings, and usually we have this short notice on these biddings, and some companies complain that they did not have enough time for preparation of applications. We need to centralize this procedure. But regarding the pricing policy, again, with the we would like to introduce some significant changes and bring together those tenders and logistical support. For example, bringing into the country some expensive medicine, while we have some cheaper analog of those products, but do not exist and is not available in our market, is of course the bottleneck, and it's due to the lack of information and lack of focus, and we will try to focus on this.
Stayed, but I know that we need to free up the hall for the next session, and I think all of the speakers have other things they're doing. But I'd like to say a very big thank you to our speakers, and I'd like to it's been a fascinating discussion. I think we've heard from foreign investors, we've heard about the pharmaceutical industry, we've heard from our representatives of the Ministry of Health. It all comes together, much like I liked the example of the pandemic sort of pulling people together. The discussion today has brought us all together, and I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the session and listening, and have a good day to everybody, and thank you once again. So.
Thank you.